August 20th, 1945. The war is over. But for nearly 300 Japanese women, nurses, radio operators, and students, surrender isn't the end. It's the beginning of a 10-day voyage that will shatter every lie their empire ever fed them. Imagine this. You've spent years believing America is a wasteland, starving people, broken factories, streets filled with beggars. You've been told that Japan's honor and spirit make it invincible. Then your ship docks in San Francisco. In reality, hits like a thunderclap. The skyline isn't ruins, it's towers of steel. The people aren't weak. They're strong, confident, smiling. In that single moment, everything you thought you knew begins to crumble. These 300 women had been raised in a world of propaganda. In school, they memorized slogans. The emperor is divine. America is collapsing. Our enemies are monsters. Now, as prisoners of war being transported from Guam to the U.S. mainland, they were about to see how wrong those words truly were. Among them were young nurses who had watched soldiers bleed out under jungle canopies, radio operators who had transmitted fake victories, and students who were pulled from classrooms and thrown into uniforms. They'd fought for a dream, one painted in bright lies. Their first shock didn't even wait until they reached America. It came from the guards aboard the transport ship. These weren't the frail, starving figures their instructors had mocked in training. The Americans were tall, their uniforms spotless, their faces calm and almost kind. One young nurse, her hands still scarred from tending battlefield wounds, remembered her superior once saying, "American men are soft, lazy, spoiled by capitalism." Yet when an American guard offered her a canteen of water, his hand was steady as steel. A radio operator nearby whispered, "Were we lied to all this time?" The question hung in the salty air, heavier than the ocean around them. For 10 days at sea, the voyage became a slow, painful unraveling of illusion. The women used to surviving on rice balls, mixed with sawdust, were suddenly served full meals, white bread, butter, meat, coffee that steamed like a forbidden luxury, and sweet peaches dripping with syrup. At first, many refused to eat, expecting poison or humiliation. Then, one by one, hunger overpowered fear. They tasted and cried. The enemy's food was richer than anything they'd eaten in years. The sailors ate casually, laughing, throwing half-finished sandwiches into the sea. Food that would have fed entire families back in Japan. Each meal deepened the cracks in their beliefs. They'd been told America was starving. Instead, they were watching abundance beyond imagination. When the ship finally reached San Francisco, the women stood in stunned silence. The city looked like the future itself. Skyscrapers, bridges, cars in endless lines, electric lights everywhere. The air smelled not of decay, but of progress. One woman later wrote, "The sight of this city was like seeing another planet. We had been living in darkness, and suddenly, someone pulled away the curtain." Their journey continued inland by train, across wheat fields like golden oceans, orchards heavy with fruit, and factories that roared with endless motion. Everywhere they looked, life thrived. A young medical student scribbled in her notebook, "If this is the land of a dying race, then everything we were taught is upside down." Even their children looked stronger than our soldiers. At Camp McCoy, Wisconsin, the dissonance grew. Instead of barbed wire cruelty, they found clean barracks, organized kitchens, and guards who followed rules with calm efficiency. Hot showers ran endlessly, something most had never known, even in their homes. When a prisoner timidly asked an American matron how long she could stay under the warm water, the woman blinked and said, "Until you're clean, honey." That one word, honey, broke something inside her. Kindness from the enemy. Medical checkups brought another shock. American doctors measured their height, weight, and bone density. The numbers were impossible. American women were taller, heavier, healthier. They looked at our charts like we were cheating. One Red Cross nurse later wrote, "Some of them cried when we said they were malnourished by our standards." Every new detail was a dagger to the false image their homeland had built. In the barracks at night, whispers spread like wind through the pine trees. How could they lie to us? Maybe this is all staged. The food, the smiles, maybe it's all an act. Some clung desperately to that thought. It was easier to believe in a trick than to face the truth. But truth has a way of settling in, quietly, relentlessly. Weeks passed. Ordinary Americans began arriving at the camp's truck drivers, clerks, carpenters, delivering supplies, or checking records. These men weren't soldiers or chosen propaganda models. Yet even they were strong, confident, well-fed. If these are their common men, one prisoner wrote, what must their armies look like? Their factories, their cities. Our war was lost long before it began. One day, a U.S. officer gave a lecture about wartime production. Through an interpreter, he explained. In 1944, the United States built over 96,000 aircraft. The room gasped. Japan's best year, barely 28,000. The numbers weren't just different. They were from another world. The student dropped her pencil. Then, why, she whispered, did they send us to fight? That question was the real explosion. Not Hiroshima, not Nagasaki, but this, the shattering of faith. That night, a nurse named Sachiko broke down, shouting in Japanese, they betrayed us. They knew. And they sent us anyway. Silence followed. For the first time, no one argued back, because deep inside, every woman knew she was right. They began to see their defeat, not as humiliation, but as revelation. Some started learning English, eager to understand this new world. Others filled notebooks with reflections about truth and morality. One woman wrote, our defeat was not military, it was spiritual. We were children locked in a house of mirrors, shown only what our leaders wanted. Here, in the enemy's land, I finally see my own face. Then came the letters and photographs from home, Hiroshima, Nagasaki. Cities turned to ash, images of burned buildings, children scarred by radiation, women wandering through rubble. The realization was unbearable. If their government had lied about America's weakness, about Japan's invincibility, about the war's purpose, then loyalty itself had been a chain. One evening, a prisoner stood at the window, watching the sunset over melting snow. They took everything, she whispered. Our brothers, our homes, our pride. But here, I see children laughing, women respected, food in every hand. If this is defeat, what was our victory ever supposed to be? Her words ignited something. Not hatred, but awakening. Their anger was no longer aimed at the Americans. It was directed back toward Tokyo, at the men who had manipulated them, who had called surrender dishonor, but sent them to die for a lie. I was not defeated by America, one woman later wrote. I was defeated by my own country's lies. When they finally boarded the ships home, they were no longer the same women. They had arrived as enemies, lived as captives, and were leaving as witnesses, bearers of a truth more powerful than any weapon. That truth would haunt post-war Japan, whispered in classrooms, written in secret diaries, told to children decades later. Because these women had seen with their own eyes what propaganda could never erase. That the world beyond their island was not monstrous or weak. It was human. And humanity, they learned, is stronger than any empire. Their journey didn't end in San Francisco. It began there, in the space between illusion and understanding, between hate and empathy. The shock of American reality hadn't broken their spirit. It had forged something new, clarity. For the first time, they understood that war doesn't just destroy nations, it destroys truth. And on that voyage, from Guam to Wisconsin and back again, 300 women finally found what no army, no emperor, and no lie could ever take from them again. The courage to see,